Linda Alela. We have a lot lined up for you in the world of business, sports, politics, and much more. I'm hoping you're having a great start to your day today. Remember, you can be part of this conversation by texting us live on 22047. Our Twitter handle is at T47KE. Mine is at Eric_Mnene. Let's get this great conversation that we're about to have going. I want to start with a newspaper review. And I have with me the Daily Nation. The big story right there on the Daily Nation, of course, is the news about the former DCI boss, that is George Kinoti. Kinoti, a man on the cross in nasty feud. And of course, this is a story about the push and pull between the DCI and the DPP. The two offices have had it rough over the past few years, and some political analysts say that this could be a pointer of things to come as the new regime probes alleged excesses of officers under him. That's DCI boss George Kinoti, the former DCI boss George Kinoti, the former head of Directorate of Criminal Investigations, looks like the man who will perhaps carry the cross of the sins of the Uhuru presidency in a political tit-for-tat game that has been gathering pace since the swearing in of President William Ruto. And of course, that story has been captured on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. In some details, they are on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. How much Ruto is willing to dig into the operations of the DCI will define the structure of the security agencies. Remember, the DCI boss resigned immediately. President William Ruto took the reins of power. Kinoti, of course, hurriedly resigned. It's a story. It's a matter of wait and see what is going to happen to the former DCI boss. Let's talk about some politics now. On page 4 of the Daily Nation, allocation of 2 slots to lawmakers from neighboring counties raises questions on diversity. That is, the UDA locks Kenya Kwanza partners out of parliamentary commission. The story there, you can see it's captured on page 4 of the Daily Nation. It's on your screen right now. The UDA party has bagged all 4 slots allocated to the Kenya Kwanza Alliance in the Parliamentary Service Commission, PSC. That is locking out its partners. But the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition has distributed its 3 slots to its 3 main affiliate parties, that is ODM, Jubilee, and Wiper. Of course, there's going to be some disquiet within the Kenya Kwanza coalition in that camp, as other affiliate parties of the Kenya Kwanza coalition feel shortchanged by the United Democratic Alliance that is led by President William Ruto. That story, of course, is on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Right next on that story, on page 5 of the Daily Nation, the Indians murder, 9 to be held until this coming Thursday. The state has argued that more time is needed to subject the suspects to a DNA test and analyze their mobile phones. And of course, these are the 9 officers accused of killing 2 Indians and their taxi driver just before the elections, and they belong to the disbanded SSU unit, pretty much relating to the story that we talked about, the DCI boss being under fire. The DCI Special Services Unit was, of course, under that Directorate of Criminal Investigation. So 5 of the 9 police officers accused of killing 2 Indians and their taxi driver. The picture right there on your screen is when they appeared before the Kahawa Law Court's Chief Magistrate, Ms. Mochache, last week. And of course, the 2 were Mohammed Said Sami and Zulfikar Ahmed, who are claimed to have traveled to Kenya during the electioneering period and were working with the digital media team allied to President William Ruto before they were abducted. That story in detail is captured on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Of course, there's been some push by President William Ruto to raise taxes. He's been talking about bettering the lives of Kenyans, and what better way to do it than to raise taxes? But Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance have broken the silence. They're saying follow the law in bid to raise taxes. And that is Raila, of course, telling Ruto the leaders have called for public participation before increasing taxes. The decision to increase taxes, they say, needs public participation. There should be no taxation without representation. That is what ODM leader Raila Odinga says. Of course, he talked about a lot of things yesterday, promising to give his next political direction in the next few coming days. That is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And then on page 8 of the Daily Nation, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua launches drive to create 1 million jobs. He also warned officials against theft of relief food meant for the starving. That is on page 8 of the Daily Nation. As you can see him right there, Pamoja Tuungane, contribution to the private sector drought response. Check worth 283 million, slightly above 283 million shillings. The numbers, 38.9%, that is the rate of youth unemployment in Kenya, with some 800,000 young people entering the job market every year. Quite some worrying statistics. And then 1 billion shillings, of course, is the amount of money that the Pamoja Tuungane initiative seeks to raise by March next year. That is 2023. Page 10 of the Daily Nation on national news, some sad story here as the Senate started probing the case of a baby's death, that is baby Travis. The mother yesterday met senators and told them that a doctor demanded that she pays 20,500 shillings before the son could be attended to. And senators yesterday said that death was as a result of poor state of health services in the country. The story right there is on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Going for 14 hours without getting medical attention is serious. We expected KNH to do better. We have to get to the bottom of this. That is Senator Jackson Mandago, who's the chairperson of that health committee of the Senate. Of course, you can grab your copy of the Daily Nation to get the more details about that. I want us to cross over now to the Standard. What do we have on Standard? Anger greets Haji's shock confessions. Of course, that also is still the same story as on the Daily Nation, the story about the fight between former DCI boss George Kinoti and DPP Noordin Haji. In a tell-all interview, Director of Public Prosecution says external forces interfered with his work and even threatened him, but he stood firm. He also accuses former DCI boss of not doing thorough investigations. However, Kenyans say that he should resign. Well, some Kenyans online have seen those conversations online, some saying that if indeed it's true that some forces were coercing him to perform his duty, then he also should resign and follow suit, just like the former DCI boss George Kinoti did. On page 3 of the Standard, boy with jembe in head lost fight after 14 hours of agonizing wait. Of course, that is a story about baby Travis. When the mother met senators, the Senate Health Committee yesterday, that is chaired by Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago. Of course, the paper has captured that story well. A medical officer told the family to pay 20,500 shillings before Travis could be seen or attended to. Quite story. And scrap metal dealers pledged to lead fight to protect property. Remember, there was a ban on scrap metal. That story is still on page 3 of the Standard. There was a ban on that. But now they're saying they are fighting vandalism, which is common and slowly getting out of hand. You want to see what is in store for them. It's on page 3 of the Standard. Another interesting story there. Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o saying he has unveiled his cabinet comprising of 3 women, and he has given pressure, he gave into pressure rather, to nominate more women to cabinet. That is on page 3 of the Standard. Page 4 of the Standard, rhetoric meets reality in Ruto's lofty pledge for a robust economy. The pledges that Ruto made, of course, Kenya Kwanza made a lot of promises during the campaigning period, but now the reality has hit that camp. The president saying that he needs the Kenya Revenue Authority, of course, to up its game and increase its collections. Experts have questioned the government's push to slash workers' salaries by raising their monthly contributions, even as it remains silent on how to stem runaway corruption and wastage. Of course, that is what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance was talking about yesterday, saying that yes, you can raise taxes, but you need public participation as well as representation. So, of course, putting some brakes on the president's ambitious plans. Page 6 of the Standard, again, my tiff with Kinoti facing threats and why I'm dropping DP's case. Haji claims he was frustrated by the lack of concrete evidence when handling some cases that were brought to him by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. DPP says he is determined to hold senior security officers to account also for the killing of Baby Pendo. Baby Pendo was killed during the skirmishes in the aftermath of the 2017 general elections. The DPP yesterday revealed that in the initial days he worked on gentleman's agreement terms with Kinoti, accepting cases on a first test basis, that is a threshold test, believing that the full evidence to sustain a trial will be coming. Now he says that was not to happen. We are being used to settle scores, say police in missing Indians case. The officers claim that the arrest and incarceration is meant to achieve a political goal. That is on page 7 of the Standard. Of course, it's connected to the two top stories. The main story is actually on the Standard and the Daily Nation. Former DCI boss George Kinoti now facing an imminent arrest, and DPP Noordin Haji saying that he was coerced to do to proceed with cases without enough evidence. Some of them he's dropped. Of course, one of them touching on the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Back to the officers who claim that the arrest and incarceration is meant to achieve a political goal. They also say utterances by the president have depicted them as killers even before investigations are completed. These are the 9 officers that are facing several charges after 2 Indians and their taxi driver, a Kenyan taxi driver, went missing this year, actually just before the general election. On page 7 of the Standard, an interesting story there. 3 students in court for selling fake exam papers. Well, we're expecting the national examinations for the secondary and primary schools to approach. 3 university students took advantage of the situation to defraud parents out of millions of shillings through false promise of leakages. Remember, there's no shortcut to success, so parents be warned. Well, on page 9 of their Standard, civil servants to get pay increment in 100 days, says CS Jumwa. The CS says the technical committee will be formed to make recommendations of appropriate pay rise. She's also extending working hours in 18 Huduma centers to 7 p.m. Of course, there are at least 923,000 public servants in the country whose wage bill stands at more than 890 billion shillings annually. So she says that if cabinet secretaries, or rather if public servants are well remunerated, then there will be no corruption cases. Well, that is the Public Service, Affirmative Action and Gender Cabinet Secretary Aisha Jumwa. Well, on page 10 of the Standard, Raila Kalonzo fault withdrawal of cases against Ruto allies. Still connected to that case, we're talking about the DPP and the former DCI boss. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leaders Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka have urged their troops and supporters to remain in the opposition as they vow to hold President William Ruto's government accountable. And they're saying that the government is already oppressing the people and that they will not remain silent while the masses suffered. You can grab your copy of the Standard for that story. And then for his policies to succeed, Ruto should focus on finance reforms. That is on page 12 of the Standard. It's an analysis. Well, an expert's views. It's actually a management consultant who thinks what the president should do to ensure that he steers the country to the right direction. So that's it on the newspaper review today. Let's see what made headlines just recently. Expectant mothers seeking delivery services at Kachibora Hospital in Cherangany constituency, Trans Nzoia County, have a reason to smile after the hospital received delivery of 300 million shillings worth of equipment from the French government. Boniface Baraza has the details.
Kachibora Hospital, despite being upgraded to Cherangany Sub-County Hospital, has been reporting deaths of pregnant mothers due to lack of delivery equipments.
Wakati wa kujifungua, saa zingine inakupata ghafla, kitambo ufike mbali kuenda huko kama ni Kitale, umehangaika.
Wamama wanateseka hapa, wakikuja usiku tena wanaenda mpaka Siwa, sasa njiani wengine wanakufia njiani.
According to them, this will go a long way in reducing the heavy burden of seeking treatment.
Sasa hii tunashukuru hii mashini imekuja hapa, itatusaidia hata gharama itakuwa chini badala ya kwenda mbali.
Area leaders have said this support will address infant and mother mortality cases during childbirth.
We have received equipment from the French government, specifically in support of maternal and child health.
Tumekuja hapa kupokea vifaa kutoka kwa French government na naimiza county government ya Trans Nzoia tuweze kujenga nyumba ambayo sinawekwa hizi vifaa sikae salama.
Sasa tutafanyiwa hapa upasuaji kwa wale wamama wenye wanajifungua na wagonjwa wengine watapata sasa huduma hapa hospitali hii yetu ya Cherangani.
Tungeomba kwamba infrastructure ambayo inastahilika kwa ajili ya theater room iweze kuifanyiwa haraka, maana itaweza kusaidia ili kaweza kupunguza msongamano ya referral.
From time to time, some patients, especially mothers seek delivery services, have been forced to seek delivery services at Kitale County Referral Hospital, leading to congestion in the facility.
Na hii itasaidia sana kupunguza msongamano wa wagonjwa katika hospitali kuu ya referral ya Kitale, kwa sababu watabaki hapa wakitibiwa hapa karibu na nyumbani kwao.
Residents here claim the move will enable mothers to give birth in the right environment.
Utilization of this equipment will see a decline in infant and mother mortality cases that has been reported in the past. Boniface Barasa, TV47, Cherangani constituency, Trans Nzoia County.
Moving on, the government urgently needs 2 billion shillings to cushion Kenyans from the ravaging effects of drought. Meanwhile, non-governmental organizations have been urged to collaborate with the national government to help mitigate the impact of the ongoing drought. Andrin Kilemi reports.
As Kenyans continue to suffer the adverse effects of the ongoing drought, calls have been made to non-governmental organizations to join forces with the national government to help mitigate the impact of drought among the over 4 billion Kenyans. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says that the government urgently needs 2 billion shillings to effectively cushion Kenyans against the ravaging effects of drought.
I'm inviting you, CEO Safaricom and everybody else. I need urgently 2 billion shillings from the private sector.
Speaking in a meeting with private sector members drawn from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance KEPSA, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said quick interventions are needed to prevent further loss of lives.
The farmers in Nyandarua, the farmers in Kitale, Uasin Gishu, Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga, have food and they are willing to support areas where there is no food. We need some money to compensate them in a small way because we can't take it for free because they need to plant for the next season and we need money to transport that food.
The second in command while launching the Pamoja Initiative program under the Kenya Private Sector Alliance lauded the private sector for the 114 million shillings contributed so far. The government has already distributed tons of relief food to affected families in some of the counties severely affected by drought, one of the worst the country has faced in decades. The DP also said the government was working on long-term solutions to the cyclic droughts.
Let no Kenya die when you are there. Let our children not leave the classrooms. Please consider and make a contribution.
Meanwhile, 1,600 households in Narok East Sub-County are expected to benefit from 6,000 monthly cash transfers and 8,000 bags of pallets to mitigate the effects of the ongoing drought in the area.
The already selected 1,600 households will each benefit of 12,000 shillings for the 2 months. That one will be a total of almost 20 million shillings. It is 19.2 million shillings. The same areas of Ntulele, Mosiro, Ongatanado and Inturimeti. I think they are the hard hit areas.
The unceasing drought has resulted in the death of livestock, while at the same time disrupting learning in parts of the country, as learners are unable to attend school due to lack of food. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
President William Ruto has directed the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, to furnish Interior Ministry with a roadmap on how to end extrajudicial killings in the country. The president has underscored the government's commitment to stop extrajudicial killings in the country. Meanwhile, 9 police officers from the disbanded Special Services Unit will now have to wait for 2 more days to know their fate. The officers, who are linked to the disappearance of 2 Indians and their driver, appeared in court yesterday. Collins Lusweti with that story.
The 9 officers appeared before the Kahawa Law Courts Monday for a hearing on an application the prosecution had made to detain the officers for 30 days over the 2 missing Indians and their taxi driver. In the hearing, the court gave the prosecution 2 days to reply to 9 affidavits filed by the police officers, ruling that they had been served on a short notice.
Indeed, it would be unfair and not in the interest of justice to expect the prosecution to respond to these total paragraphs of, I think, 200 and something within 15 to 20 minutes.
The defense lawyers had filed 9 affidavits opposing an application by the Internal Affairs Unit to detain the officers for 30 days to allow completion of investigations. Led by lead lawyer Danson Omari, the defense counsel argued that the prosecution is almost done with the investigations, questioning the 30-day period required by the prosecution as political witch hunt.
The third issue we have raised is that the state is asking for 30 days to do investigations. Within the affidavits, the state confirms that they have already done with the phones, they have already done with other facilities. So why are they asking for 30 days?
The defense also applied to court to be allowed to cross-examine 2 investigating officers in the matter who have sworn affidavits, with ruling expected in 2 days.
One on the contradictions in the state's application. We demanded to have the investigating officers, 2 of them, be cross-examined. The state's objection was not upheld, and the court allowed us that we will cross-examine the people who deponed the investigators.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto has directed the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, to furnish the Ministry of Interior with a roadmap on how to deal conclusively with extrajudicial killings in the country. Collins Lusweti, TV47.
Now, a week after the investigative agency DCI Director Amin Mohammed requested the families of victims affected by the kidnapping and subsequent deaths of their kin to appear before his offices to determine the progress of the investigation, the family of abducted security analyst Mwenda Mbinjiwe had a session with the new director Monday to determine what happened before the kidnapping of their beloved one. And as Mike Agongo reports, the family is hopeful that they will find their beloved one alive, asking Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua to intervene so that they could get justice.
June 12 last year goes down as a painful memory in the eyes of Jane Gatweri, the mother of Mwenda Mbinjiwe, a renowned security expert who disappeared in mysterious circumstances and until this day has not been found. On Monday, Jane Gatweri is strong. Her face is full of smiles, not because of finding Mwenda Mbinjiwe, but being full of hope that she will find her son.
Na nimefurahi leo kwa sababu nilikuwa na appointment ya kuona DCI, the new DCI kupitia Haki African Director. Tumeandamana pamoja na ofisi yake na tumekuja, tumeonana na DCI. I'm so happy.
This is after having a direct meeting with the new Director of Criminal Investigation, DCI, Amin Mohammed. She says at first it was difficult to hold a session with Amin's predecessor George Kinoti, but conducting discussions with the new director gives her a lot of hope.
Matumaini kubwa sana kwa sababu is a very good listener, na nimeona ni mtu akusikiza, na kwa sababu ameambia PA wake sasa kitambo atoke kwa mkutano akute hiyo file ya Mbinjiwe imeletwa. Na wajue the way forward.
She is still optimistic that her son Mwenda Mbinjiwe will be found alive. following the early statement by ODM party leader Raila Odinga that he will talk to the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta regarding the disappearance of Mbijiwe.
Kwa wakati Raila alikuwa Meru, akasema mzee aliaga, lakini mambo ya mwenda nitaongea na president, si lazima the former president now, si lazima ngojea mambo ya usagusi. Hiyo tukaweka very ngundi question mark na hata tukaandika kwa mitandao.
Human Rights Defending Organization Haki Africa Director Hussein Khalid, who has been following the matter since it was reported, saying that Amin Mohammed has confirmed of resuming the investigation of the case after involving a assigned officer to the case.
So he directed that the person who is investigating this matter, the file to be presented to him today, and that as soon as he goes through the file, he will be able to follow up, and then he will get in touch with the mother to update her on the progress that they will have made.
They now want the government to hasten and aid in the investigative process so that they get justice in answer to the promises they received before the August polls.
Our call to the government is one, that the people now have a lot of faith in them. Please do not let them down, because they have shown clearly that they are committed to address this issue as a government, and the people have believed them, because we have seen action. We've seen people being taken to court. You know, we've seen the ground moving.
Niko na imani ya kwamba Bijewe is detained somewhere where we don't know, but God never knows. Our deputy president, ninamuomba kwa sababu hata yeye ni baba, anifikiria naona ile uchungu niko naye kama mama, aniletee mtoto wangu kama vile alisema, na Mungu atambariki.
Last week, several families affected by the extrajudicial killings and disappearances were, however, been invited for a consultative meeting with the Director of Criminal Investigations. The meeting is expected to revolve around their missing loved ones, partly attributed to enforced abductions, with some of their kin suspected to have been allegedly executed by the disbanded Special Service Unit SSU of the DCI. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Mike Kagwongo, for that. Now, days after their swearing in, CAs Aden Duale, Susan Nakumicha, Salim Mvurya, and Simon Chelugui have taken over their respective ministries. The four promised to steer the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. The story was produced by Andu Juma.
And maybe you can stand up just for... Thank you.
At Afya House, Mutahi Kagwe handed over to Susan Nakumincha as the Health Cabinet Secretary. Kagwe priding himself of having reformed the ministry, which he at some point claimed was captured by cartels.
So I could not repeat, I could not mention each one and every one of you. But I just want you to know that there is nothing that I personally took for granted. You know, I remember harassing the PS almost every day. Please get us some money for this, get us.
And many of you have asked whether I will fit in Senator Mutahi Kagwe's shoes. Obviously, no. I'm sure his shoe size could be 42 or something thereabout, while mine is at 38. So I come with my own shoe and heels for that matter.
His tenure at the ministry was faced by the COVID-19 pandemic and COVID scandal. Nakumincha promising to pick up from where Kagwe left in reforming Afya House.
And I want to call upon my colleagues and to call upon everybody else within the ministry that as we land, as we are planted here for this season, let us make a difference.
At the Ministry of Labour, Simon Chelugui ushered in Florence Bore, promising to ensure that the ministry creates more job opportunities for Kenyans in the next 5 years. Her entry into the ministry coming at the backdrop of constant complaints of Kenyans being killed in the Gulf countries.
I'm not far, I'll be available, I'm a phone call away. You can always reach out for anything. You have a wonderful team, and I believe nothing will go wrong.
My doors will be wide open and will always remain open for any consultation.
Salim Mvurya is also a new cabinet secretary, joining Ruto's cabinet as mining and blue economy minister. The former Kwale governor promised to create jobs for Kenyans through mining and blue economy.
As you already know, this is a new ministry,
which His Excellency the President has put together so that then the country can realize their potential in the different aspects of this ministry.
His Excellency President William Ruto has configured this ministry in a very useful and synergized manner, mining both on land and offshore. You know, I think that is the way to conceive it. And this is because, in my mind, this is the next frontier of Kenya's wealth growth.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Well, moving on, the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms has begun its next assignment of public participation by ensuring they listen to Kenyans' views on the competency-based curriculum. The Working Party's chair, Professor Raphael Munavu, has been in Turkana County, where he expressed optimism with the exercise that is set to officially kick off Tuesday. Sharon Baranga now reports.
From Tuesday, Kenyans are expected to turn up in large numbers at designated points in the country to air their views on the competency-based curriculum CBC to the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. The Working Party's chair, Professor Raphael Munavu, was in Turkana County to assess the level of preparedness ahead of the exercise set to start on Tuesday.
And I believe that we are going to get a lot of positive suggestions from the residents of Turkana. We are going to be engaging with all the stakeholders, the SACCOs, the associations, the teachers, the parents, and so we expect tomorrow is going to be a very engaging period.
Residents of Turkana County will participate in the exercise from Lodwar Boys High School.
We are requesting those who are making suggestions to precisely tell us what may be challenges, but also how can we solve those challenges that there are. What are the critical needs? Because really the most important thing that we can do for this country is ensure that our children are properly educated, they are properly skilled, moving the way forward.
Munavu placed a public invitation to all Kenyans to turn up and give their views on the challenges they have noted on the new curriculum. The Working Party, with a membership of over 40 members, has split in groups so that they are in a position to visit all the counties.
We have 10 teams. We are just one of them. The other teams in Mombasa, in Kisumu area, in Northeastern, Mandera, Southeastern, and so on, have also started their work today. The brief we are getting is that they have, and they are communicating, is that they have done the engagement very well. Some people started the engagements even as early as yesterday. So all the teams, the 10 of them, will be engaging tomorrow with the public participation groups, the town meetings where we are receiving feedback from the public.
Members of the Working Party will spend 2 days in each county documenting Kenyans' opinions from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Working Party is also receiving recommendations in form of proposals through written memoranda, letters, or research papers. The Working Party is not starting from ground zero, but it will also consult reports from previous commissions and working parties. Kenyans have until 18th November 2022 to submit their concerns on the competency-based curriculum. The Working Party on Education Reforms has 6 months to deliver a conclusive report on the recommendations that they will arrive at after engaging with education stakeholders and also conducting a public participation. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Moving on, Kenyans will bear the burden as the Kenya Kwanza government sets a target of collecting 3 trillion shillings annually of revenue, through the Kenya Revenue Authority. In its proposal, the government is eyeing to take more from the formerly employed persons, landlords and business enterprises, albeit still calling for proposals on Kenyans to better their savings amid the tough economic times. Moige William reports that the opposition chief Raila Odinga has, however, faulted that move.
In its new measures to increase on tax collection, the government is targeting 3 trillion shillings through the taxman. The measures proposed now raising concerns from Kenyans who will have to feel the pain.
And we ask everybody to pay taxes. It's a responsibility.
President Ruto has proposed that Kenyans with a KRA PIN match with the number of mobile money transfer customers, a measure that could see every Kenyan above 18 years brought into the tax bracket.
Safaricom's M-Pesa has 30 million registered customers transacting billions daily. The fact that this opportunity remains unclear to KRA demonstrates why radical changes are necessary.
Lakini ushuru huwezi kupandisha bila wakilishi ya wananchi kuketi chini na kuongea. There must be also public participation. You cannot just rise up one day and say we are going to increase NSSF, NHIF, bila wabunge kujadiliana.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, in a meeting with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance (KEPSA), called on all entrepreneurs to pay up taxes, insisting the government will aggressively embark in collecting revenue from different avenues. 3 months at the helm of the country's leadership, President William Ruto underlined his focus on upscaling revenue collection, with Kenya Revenue Authority's target set at 3 trillion shillings annually.
And we have discussed with the KRA, and now we have reached a consensus. The President had a working lunch with them on Saturday, and we have agreed. They will collect very aggressively 3 trillion.
At the backdrop of KRA's 3 trillion shillings target, Kenyans will have to cough more from their pockets if Ruto's regime proposals are implemented. Among the areas targeted to achieve the ambitious revenue target is from salaried workers through statutory deductions and land rates, which will largely impact on the common mwananchi who is grappling with the high cost of living and a poor economy. Another proposal that is seen to choke Kenyans' pocket are the NHIF and NSSF contribution proposals by the President himself. The new government is pushing for the increase of contributions, both NHIF and NSSF, with the President announcing that in 2 weeks the government will publish new regulation to improve the culture of saving in the country via National Social Security Fund NSSF.
Neno la Mungu linasema mtu mwema huachia watoto wake akiba. Lakini sisi kwa Kenya ya leo watoto wetu hawatakuwa na akiba.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on his part has called on eligible Kenyans to pay up tax to the government while reassuring entrepreneurs the Kenya Kwanza government will create a conducive working environment.
But let us treat taxpayers with dignity, because they are the clients. And the client is the most important person in any engagement.
Even with the government eyeing to get more from Kenyans' pocket, who are lamenting of high cost of living and tough economic times, it will be a wait-and-see situation on how the Kenya Kwanza government will achieve its ambitious 3 trillion shillings tax collection. The taxman currently collects less than 2 trillion shillings. Last week, the central bank invited Kenyans to invest in a 60 billion shillings bond to fund expansion of infrastructure, including roads and power supply. Mwige William, TV 47.
Still in politics, Azimio Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga has criticized President William Ruto for reneging on his August 9 campaign promises on the Hustler Fund and the war on corruption. Odinga, who spoke during a burial in Kakamega County, further watered down President William Ruto's charm offensive in the Nyanza region, terming it as futile. Apollo Kamau reports on a day the opposition brigade lashed out at Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, telling him to leave Raila alone.
On a day the opposition forces converged at the burial of Philomena Barasa, mother to Kakamega Governor Fernandez Barasa, Azimio Party leader Raila Odinga took President William Ruto head-on, criticizing him for failing to meet his election promises deadlines, the Hustler Fund, and applying double standards in the war on graft.
Wakati wa campaign kulikuwa na ahadi mingi zaidi. Tutaleta pesa ya Hustler. Kutakuwa hakuna riba, interest free. Hii bilioni 50. Ingine ile ya kina mama, bilioni 100. Lakini sasa wameanza kubadilisha maneno sasa. Hakuna pesa serikali wanaweza kupata bila interest. Itakuwa less than 10%. Ile ingine ni mambo ya bei ya mafuta, bei ya unga. Sasa mimi nataka mpate mimi mwaka moja. Walisema nikiweka Biblia chini itarudi chini. Sasa hali yote umewaje.
Odinga, who over the weekend said he is not ready to hang his political boots, dismissed President Ruto's sustained charm offensive to work with rebels in his Nyanza turf, dismissing it as inconsequential.
Wana jukumu ya kuleta maendeleo, sio ati unaende ubemberese au upige magoti chini ati utapata maendeleo. Hapana. Maendeleo itakuja hapa, wapende wasipende. Kwa hivyo hiyo mambo ya kusema ati ingia kwa serikali ni upuzi.
Odinga charging his political base that he will speak when the time is right on his next political move ahead of a crucial month when the Azimio exit clause comes alive on November 9 for Azimio affiliate parties willing to stay put or exit.
Watu ambao walikuwa wameshtakiwa na mauaji sasa wanasamehewa. Mheshimiwa Waluke, mjumbe wa Seresia, kesi yake ilikuwa ni kama civil case. Manake yeye walidai pesa na wakalipwa. Badala ya kusema hiyo pesa ulilipwa kwa njia ambayo si nzuri, irudisha, amewekwa ndani.
The Azimio Brigade lashed out at Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, telling him to keep off Odinga. The Deputy President criticized Odinga on Sunday, saying Kenya Kwanza is not interested in Odinga joining government.
Anaweka. Lakini haya mimi siwezi kujivana na hao watu. Sirika yangu.
Even ndugu Gachagua, whom I don't understand, huyo simuelewi. Rigathi, yeye alienda huko Kitui akasema huyu Kalonzo hatumuelewi. I've never had a moment with him.
Na Rigathi amezoea kuzungumzia Raila kila mahali, anazungumzia Raila. Sijui hata kama nalala usiku karibu na mama, ndoto ambayo anaota ni Raila. Awaje kusumbua mama watoto na Raila, hata kama nalala Raila. Wafanye kazi.
Apul Kamau, TV47.
Well, of course, that story there by our senior political affairs reporter, Apollo Kamau, will kickstart our discussion this morning, the state of the nation. And to help me do that, I have with me Dr. Eric Ragalo, who's a governance expert. He's on my immediate right. Karibu to the studio, sir.
Asante sana.
Of course, next to him is Noordin Haji, who's an advocate of the High Court. Welcome to the set, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we have Kevin Osido from the County Governance Watch.
Asante sana.
And I want to start with you, Osido. From that story by our senior political affairs reporter, Apollo Kamau, Raila telling off Ruto, what do you think really went wrong with the plan? Deputy President, when he was the Deputy President, that is President William Ruto, of course, with his campaign promises, he gave some flowery promises. But now it's like he's reneged on those promises. Where do you think things went wrong for the Kenya Kwanza government?
Thank you so much for this opportunity and the chance to basically speak to the state of the nation. One of the things that I think went wrong is over-excitement. The hope that when you're a deputy president, then someone else doesn't make you want to do the things that you think that you should be doing by virtue of your roles as a deputy president, and then too by what the constitution says that you're supposed to do, which is to basically deputize the president and perform any other functions as may be prescribed by the appointing or by that particular authority. Number two is I think that when President William Ruto was deputy president, there was a lot of, he missed many opportunities to learn statecraft and how government is run. So the Kenya Kwanza government, as we speak today, in the many days that they have been in government, I believe they are struggling with pacifying the many promises that they made and the reality of running a government, because those two things are very, very different. And you remember many times we said here that even on this issue of Hustler Fund, there is no day government will carry money in gunny bags or in gunias to go and give people. There is a process. Unfortunately, when they were doing their campaigns, they failed to, one, understand that process and communicate the process to the people. And then number 3 is, of course, lack of accountability. The citizens have failed, in my view, to hold accountable the leadership. And this is a problem we have even at the county levels, where people come and as they are campaigning, they are saying so many things. They are making very many promises. But ultimately, as the Kenyans say, kwa ground, kwa kweli vitu vinakuwa very different. So we do not have very strict measures of accountability and tools that we can be able to purely look at the manifestos, the things that are made in the political parties and rallies, and then the reality of how governments are run. So, for example, the county integrated development planning processes. This is how government is run. So we have failed to, one, tabulate what they say in the rallies, what they put in writing in terms of their manifestos, and what goes into the county integrated development planning. Or, for example, at the national level, we have the planning processes, which therefore are supposed to be in tandem with the government's objective. So citizens, I think that a lot of times either we are too busy trying to look for food, to put food on our tables, or to look for money to put in our pockets. The youth are busy looking for jobs left, right, and center, which are also not there. And so that time to even think through what the political leaders said and what they are doing is not there. The Constitution gives us power in Article 1.1 of the Constitution. Sovereign power rests in the people, and it can be exercised either directly or indirectly. So the space to write documents like petitions or letters, to ask questions, difficult questions, like this issue of the Hustler Fund, it is a fact, for example, that government cannot give money. But how come they've suddenly realized that it has to be given in terms of loans? That people have to be given loans and then they pay back. Initially, it was money which government was going to give to people. What happened? So the fourth thing, which I think is also a problem, is how government communicates its promises and mispromises. When you say you will do something, for example, provide healthcare, and then ultimately you don't provide that healthcare, what is the variation? Is it possible that you can have proper communications processes to let people understand and know why what you said you're going to do is not happening? The fifth thing is, of course, Azimio la Umoja is One Kenya Alliance is doing its work, which is purely opposition business, and that is given that in the manner in which Kenya is framed, which is purely a pure presidential system, where whoever gets the second highest votes in a presidential process, even at the gubernatorial level, is supposed to be the opposition. But what we have failed to do as a people is to empower the office of the official opposition. So you are purely an outsider to all these processes. Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga is an outsider to all these processes. He doesn't have an office which is fully functional. Azimio has kept telling us they will put together a shadow government. They have failed many times to mention that, to put together that particular shadow cabinet, so that we know, for instance, that when you have issues with the proposals by government to have Kenyans pay taxes, or to encourage, or to push, or to cajole people to pay taxes, what is your recommendation? How would you have done it if you were the president? But now that you're in the opposition, can you give us a cabinet secretary or a shadow cabinet secretary for treasury who would then prepare Kenyans to be able to sit in those public participation processes, come up with memoranda documents, come up with proposals, and then those proposals should be debated in parliament. But unfortunately, in Kenya, the official opposition leader is even an outsider to parliament. So how you submit your recommendations or the good things that you'd want to do is in political rallies and funerals, the way Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga is doing it, which in my view is awkward. It's not supposed to be like that. So we are in a process of learning. I think the president and his team will have a very long run to be able to excite Kenyans. And I'm wondering what happened to opinion polls, because I am looking forward to seeing the ratings of President William Ruto today. What would the pollsters say about him? What are Kenyans saying about the president and what he said during the political rallies? Now he is president. What has suddenly changed and what is the feeling of Kenyans? But I think the state of the nation in terms of the performance of government, in my view, is too slow. I'm a little bit excited about the manner in which some of the cabinet secretaries have already picked up their dockets and they are running with it. Bottom line is how to now look at how they actually merge the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, what they said they would do, because we have been keeping track and we will continue to keep track. And even for Azimio and all the other political parties that had good things, quote unquote, which they wanted to do to Kenyans. So it's a beginning process, but I think for the president, he needs to move on as a president. Campaigns ended. I think they are spending too much time answering to Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga and responding to things which people are not liking about their government. I think that opportunity ended. So they need to move forward and leave the promises which they gave and made to Kenyans.
Mheshimiwa Raila has also spoken about the cases facing some people deemed to be friendly to the government. And I want to throw this to you, Kagai, you're an advocate of the High Court. The former PM saying the case, for instance, facing Sirisia MP John Oluke, saying that it's not even a criminal case, it's a civil case, but it's still proceeding, even as others who are deemed to be friendly to the government are left off the hook. What's your opinion of this? Do you think this is something good as a country for the judiciary? Do you think there's a political hand that runs through the judiciary to determine what cases proceed and which ones are dropped?
Two things. First and foremost, someone is telling a lie in this country. And we need to know who between the DPP and the former DCI is lying to Kenyans. Because at the end of the day, we have cases that are in court. And now we're being told that the DPP, as per his interview the other day, he insinuated about an issue of some powers that forced or coerced towards prosecuting certain people. Now, that office has Secretary of Tenure. That office, as you see it, should be independent. So if at all he engaged in actions of political expenditure, that means then he himself is liable. At the end of the day, the moment we start politicizing the cases that we have, that means that the fight against corruption, for example, will never be won. Because it means for you, all you need to do is, all you need is proximity to power. And any case that you have will disappear. And that is what we are seeing. Because we need to understand why the certain withdrawals are happening. If at all, because there are accusations and counter-accusations of forgery. Because the former DCI accused the DPP of forging signatures of certain 2 police officers. Now, we are seeing an indication where the DPP now is talking about forgery of documents and evidence. So at the end of the day, I'm saying somebody is lying. I need to understand who is this lying. You see, for the fight against corruption to be won, it needs to be holistic. It needs to be open. It needs to be free and fair. Irrespective of the proximity you and your political bodies have, if the people in your camp are also deemed to have corruption cases, they should clear their name, and that case should end. But what we are seeing is there is some political interference somehow. Because the moment anyone that is closer to this administration has a case, the case disappears. And you would wonder why some of these cases were withdrawn days to the vetting process for those who are appearing before the vetting committee. So at the end of the day, we might be telling ourselves that we're going to fight corruption, but it won't be won. We are still waiting for there's an inquiry, the state capture inquiry committee that they said will come. We are waiting for that so that we actually get to understand. You see, when you talk about state capture, they're talking about state officers who are doing business with the state. I'll tell you for free, even this government, some of them do business with the same state. So at the end of the day, the state capture will be captured before it even captures those who are meant to be culprits at the end of the day. So what I believe is that the moment we politicize the actions against corruption, we will never win that war. So I really hope and pray that the aspect of politics in these cases should be dealt with, so that we actually focus on having a situation where we solve these issues. Because now, the Sirisia issue has now arisen for Oluke. Because now, and you remember his constituents were demonstrating the other day, asking themselves, what happened to our MP? And by what the former Prime Minister did yesterday, you see, he's a political animal. He knows what he's doing. There's a by-election coming very soon. And I'll tell you for free, that issue of Oluke will be part and parcel of the by-election in Bungoma. Because now, politics is very funny. How you use it to your advantage matters a lot. If I can borrow from what Osino just said, back then the president now was the DP. He would say anything on top of vehicles and nobody would question. He would say the president is doing A, B, C, D, the government is doing A, B, C, D. Nobody would question. you'd give populist ideas, nobody would question. Now that they're in office, the reality has checked in. Now the reality is, the populism doesn't work. All right?
Yeah.
Had you prepared yourself for that? Because now you realize those who were expecting for the Hustler Fund, as per Raila is saying, they didn't know there will be an interest. Now they are shocked to realize that there's an interest. So what do you do? So it's how you manage the expectation of those who voted for you and how you implement your plan. Because moving forward, the instances where we are seeing major focus is on answering Raila Odinga, you're playing right into his trap. You will spend your entire 5 years attacking him, you won't work. All he'll need to do after your 5 years is collect your plan. Sit down with it, and write down what you plan to do, what you didn't do, and go on the campaign trail with that. And you are done for. So what they need to understand is that, one, we need to move away from our competitors, our opponents, and move. Because for those who don't understand is that there are those who voted for them. There are those who voted for Raila. Then there are those, the majority who didn't vote. So they also have a say. So the more you talk about competition or competitors, the country as it is, people never agree to this. But the country as it is, there are those who are still in pain. There are those who haven't moved on. There are those who are yet to understand where do we go from here. You realize? So bring the country together, because you see the presidency is a symbol of unity. Bring it together so that you can actually be able to implement your plan. And I'll tell you for free, nobody wants this government to fail. If you are a Kenyan of right thinking mind, you cannot want it, because if it fails, it affects you. It affects you one way or another. So its success is a success to the Kenyan people. You realize, and that is why everybody hopes that they actually perform. But the opposition will be there to do its work. That is oversight and check on what they are doing moving forward. Yeah.
Well, I want to engage Dr. Agallo. You've talked about something about the DPP and the former DCI boss Kinoti, and that has made it to the top of the dailies. Daily Nation, Kinoti, man on the cross in nasty feud. Dr. Agallo, what do you think about that? Noordin is of the opinion that someone should be answerable. One of them is lying to Kenyans. What do you think about this whole situation? Because these are serious matters that the two are talking about. Some lives have been lost, billions of shillings have been wasted.
I only want to question the DPP. And thank you so much for having me around. I want to question the DPP. He has the most security of tenure here. And DPP, having security tenure means he is free to do his work without manipulation or getting a call from someone. So when the DPP says that someone broke into his place and he was forced to some issues, what is he trying to insinuate? And he had the time to talk. He didn't talk. Now he's talking right now because he thinks this is the right time to open his mouth. Just as the word says, there are some things you leave them dead. Just sleep with them, don't say them. He's making it worse for himself. Because the question now comes back to the DPP. You have the security of tenure. Why couldn't you tell Kenyans then, and nothing would have been done to you anyway? I want to give an example. We had Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice. He had a lot of pressure. Hakuna vile utaangusha serikali. Serikali ni serikali. You know? And when he came, he said, no, these people didn't win election. Election was fraud, and we have to redo it. People made noise. By the end of the day, he said, nimesema mkitaka kuniua niue. He used those words. I'm not saying the words he didn't use. Did we kill him? Is it not alive? Didn't we do another election? Sikuli nyamaza. And then what has happened to him? Has he been taken to any court? So sometimes Noordin is a weak man. And weak people are the people who make noise as such. And so Noordin is not honest, because Kinoti will never make such noise.
I want us to come back with that. Hold on to that thought. I want us to take a very short break. This is Morning Cafe. We're talking about the state of the nation. I have with me Dr. Agallo, who's a governance expert. I have Kevin Osido, also a governance expert, and Advocate Noordin Kagai, an advocate of the High Court. We're talking about the state of the nation. What made it to the top of the dailies, the front pages? We're talking about the issue of the DPP and the former DCI boss, their long feud, and the accusations and counter accusations. And we'll be right back after this short break.
are watching TV47, the home of untold stories. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you?
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is a Morning Cafe. Remember, you can be part of this conversation by texting us live on 22047. You can tweet us at TV47KE. Mine is at Eric_Nene. I have with me Noordin Haji, an advocate of the High Court, Dr. Eric Ragalo, a governance expert, and Kevin Osido from the County Governance Watch. You're talking about the state of the nation. Just before we went on that short break, Dr. Ragalo, you had an interesting point of view.
Yeah, I was saying that there's no way that Noordin Haji should be making noise, and he has a security of 10 or doing his job without any interference. And I even gave you what former CJ did. Without interference, he made his bold move. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what Noordin is telling us. The fact remains he's liable to everything he's talking about. So first question, and quick fast. Within 1 week, we saw almost 5 to 7 drops of cases. Case starting from MP Nyali, okay? We went to a case from...
that is Aisha Jumwa?
No, MP Nyali is not
Aisha. Sorry.
He's called who? Mohammed.
Okay, Mohammed Ali.
We went from there, we went to the case of Aisha Jumwa. From there, we went to many other cases.
But the Aisha Jumwa case was a criminal one and wasn't dropped. The DPP was clear on that.
I mean, this is how softly it was done. I mean, when you go for interview, ethics takes care of everything. If you did a wrong, ethically you're not supposed. Ethically, you may not be wrong, but ethically you're not supposed to assume an office until you're cleared, even from ethically. And that's why ethics was coming in the BBI, which again, the same group right now refused BBI, knowing they were coming to cabinet. So, if we are to go forward, already Noordin is telling us, bring in a commission of inquiry to investigate me. That is what he's telling you. He's already telling you this and this was done wrong, or we signed signature mbaya, or we alipeana ma document fake. So Noordin is telling you, so I was working with fake documents, guys, Kenyans. So, and I was forced to work with fake documents. So Noordin is telling the president, constitute a commission of inquiry to investigate my docket. So what happens? You step aside, a commission is done. So that's what Noordin is saying. Hii kupiga kelele inatupatia answer. You know, figuratively, you are told to find one with an equation. So from there, now one is already being found. That's what Noordin is telling us. And again, you asked another question, which my brother Osido answered very intellectually. But fact is fact. A Kenyan has a loan which has already surpassed 60%. Ulichukua loan kwa sako, ukaenda kuchukua loan kwa kwa KCB. I'm giving an example. Umeshachapa 60%. Sasa ndio hii NHIF na NSSF imepanda na ngiri na unalipwa ngiri so moja. I'm talking to a client, that's why I'm doing some sharing because that's what they hear better. Unalipwa ngiri so moja. Umesapa 60%. Unastahili ukatwe thao ngapi? Unaongezwa thao ingine 3 ama thao 4 juu ya hiyo so moja. Na hiyo thao 3, hiyo ndio inakuwa transi yako ya 3. Ya mwezi mmoja unalipaga so per day, so kwa mwezi ni thao 3 na kitu. So wanaopigia hesabu imeshapigwa chenga. Nauliza Mkenya, utendaje kwa banku mpige hesabu ndio sasa usisapasi ile over 60%? You know, this is why Raila is saying, and that's why I'm telling this to Kenyans, this is why Raila is saying public participation. Come to Kenyans and tell them, guys, we are going to raise this. But we are not going to do it immediately. I'm giving you 1 year to talk to your banker, to talk to your lender. If you are surpassed 60%, prepare yourself for 1 year. In this 1 year, we're going to do a public participation on how we are going to take this money and how we are going to amass this money to help our country. And these are the reasons, guys. You know, tell Kenyans, they're not foolish.
Yes.
These are the reasons. We are going to have this, we are going to have this. Why I'm saying this, right now we are changing education structure again. The same commission of inquiry that was, is it a commission of inquiry or what?
The presidential working group.
Yes, that was formed to bring the current education system. It's the same again being formed to restructure it again. And it's going to go the whole country picking opinion from Kenyans. But now again, you want to tax Kenya without even picking their opinions. Some of them are even telling you, which I'm sure, they have surpassed 60%. Unaenda kuipiga hama ndi. That Kenyan voted for you. That Kenyan didn't vote for you like Eric Ragalo, which I didn't. And if you were to repeat, I will still not. And then there's another Kenyan who just assumed not to. So that Kenyan who voted for you, who really loved you, unamchenga sasa. Ebu tupatiwe zile vitu zikuwa kuja kila wiki kwa Star. You know, Star was very good in bringing us some opinion every week. So tulete opinion, huyu jamaa anaendelea namna gani uone. Then the other one, you told the Kenyans you're going to give them free what? Free money. Even you, brother, even my brother Noordin, there's no day you'll give someone free money. Anaambia hata Mkenya ukikatia mtu, ukienda kumlilia lunch, unakuwa na prospects, bro. So hakunaga kitu ya free. Hata Kenyatta alituambiaga there's nothing free in Kenya. So unampatia free pesa ya nini? So now umeenda umemchenga umwambie pesa ni loan. Na si loan tu, washikane watu 15 to 20 which is forming a kasako. You get an idea then come. Nataka kuona hustler. Wenye wanaweza shikana watu 15 waseme tunafungua kampuni, wakuja wapatie milioni 10 wafungue kampuni. Ikifanyika nitakuwa nimejua hii Kenya nyingine. Haitafanyika because that idea first they need to sit down. Lawyers like my friend here need to write them some many documents.
Okay.
They have to go through the process of forming a company. Then before they reach that money, they have to show that they can pay the money. Hiyo sasa ndio tumerudi. Are we going there? That is a way of economic streamline package. What Kibaki did, fungueni biashara ndogo ndogo kujani niwasaidie. But you see the way it is being brought, it's not the way I understood it. It's being brought in a way Kenyans will not go for this money. This money is going to help the rich hustler.
Okay.
People who already are sorted and they know how to do things. Hao ndo wanaenda kupata hii pesa. Then ule hustler mwenye anaitangwa hustler, anaenda kuomba kazi, atafinyiliwa tu bado. Hakuna mahali wanajichomolea.
All right. There's a viewer saying Dr. Ragalo amechangamka na sheng sana.
Anaongelelea wa hustler.
Sasa anaongea na mahasala, si walikuwa wanaongeleshwa na Kiswahili. Walikuwa wanaitwa mabazenga. I could hear those things in the campaign, mabazu. So talk to the bazu in the language they hear. Waambiwe hapa mlienjoyiwa na brother katanguruma. Tuko pamoja, tunaumia.
So Osido, let's talk about this issue between the DPP and the former DCI boss. Some serious allegations here. DPP Noordin Haji saying that there was forgery of documentary evidence. There was pressure on the ODPP through the media. There's pressure on investigators. There's coercion and threats. And then the ex-DCI boss, George Kinoti, says that the DPP was using unorthodox means to develop the interagency terrorism guidelines. He forged personal details of 2 senior police officers during a meeting in Naivasha, and we can go on and on and on. The story has been captured widely on both the top 2 newspapers in terms of circulation, that is the Nation newspaper and the Standard. But I want to just ask this: should the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition have won the elections, do you think we will be here where we are right now?
In terms of the DPP and his confessions, this is a huge mistake. Whether Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance won or we have Kenya Kwanza, the DPP Mheshimiwa Haji should not use this grace period, the grace period that we have, for what I called earlier on over-excitement. Because remember that this gentleman is a Kenyan like any other Kenyan, other than being the director of public prosecutions. He was not DPP before.
Yeah.
Now he is DPP. There is going to be a day when he will cease to be a DPP, because he of course enjoys security of tenure. He is in an office that is fixed within term limits as far as the constitution is concerned, and his office has a clear mandate of what it is supposed to do. Beyond that, remember, Bwana Eric, that this gentleman normally swears in. When he's being sworn into office, he swears to an oath. He raises his hand and he holds I think he is a Muslim, the Quran, and he says, "So help me God." What does that mean? What do those words mean to him when he's saying, when he's taking that oath? I believe that, and I want to join the Kenyans who are calling him, who are calling for his resignation, because he would have done the best way to have dealt with these issues. Because the gentleman, in my view, is not looking very okay insofar as his the discharge of his mandate and the responsibility to his duties is concerned. He's more or less playing a dalliance to the government of the day by making these confessions, which is not supposed to be the case.
But to be fair to him, Osido, he's been complaining. I remember there's even a time he told of the former DCI boss, telling him, you know, I'm not at your level. I can only speak to the Inspector General of Police. So he's been complaining. It's just that now the allegations are now more damning.
But those complaints mean nothing to Kenyans. What Kenyans are looking for is justice. That you as a DPP will be able to rely on the DCI, and if the DCI is not doing their job properly, in my view, there are better channels to complain or to raise concerns other than going on TV and public media to want to raise those concerns, because in my view, they mean so little to a Kenyan who is so frustrated about how their father was kidnapped, and for so many years or months or days, they've been waiting for him. They are so concerned about the justice that is lying in court because their files have gotten lost, you know, because he has some errant officials that he has failed to contain within his Directorate of Public Prosecution mechanisms and structures. So what, in my view, needs to happen is that the gentleman needs to assume or behave the same way a military commander would behave. When you are a friend of a president who is already out of power, you don't begin to come up and say, oh, you know, even the lorry that we brought, we were forced to bring it. The jeshis that we sent to this place, we were forced to send them. No, you have statutes that guide how you are supposed to operate and discharge your responsibilities and run your business. You know, this personification and personalization of offices, where you want to probably become a friend to Noordin here because he's too close to the Chief Justice, because you imagine that he can be able to send a WhatsApp to the CJ to be favorable to you. Once you are a state officer, you are a public servant, engage with the Kenyans and engage with processes the same way you would expect your uncle to engage with them, or your son or your mother or whoever relative that you have. Taking note of that particular office. Of course, we also note the kind of context that these wonderful ladies and gentlemen were operating within. But in my view, they had the time, you know, to engage. Even if he says he's in the level of the CS Interior, why didn't he engage with the CS Dr. Matiang'i at that point in time, so that all these accusations that he's now bringing up did not have to arise at such a time as this? It was erroneous, in my view, for him to take advantage of the opportunity he had to address very important concerns. that are bedelving Kenyans insofar as access to justice is concerned. But fact of the matter is that now we are here. The gentleman that is fully accusing has since resigned. He has left office. And remember that some of these documents are sworn in affidavits. Of course, even at the Supreme Court petition, we saw the Chief Justice referring to some documents, and she really, that's the Deputy Chief Justice, really spoke to the Law Society of Kenya to rein on its members so that they do not submit fake documents or whatever they refer to as opaque and all that. But some of these things are affidavits that are sworn. What do you do to a person who has sworn a fake affidavit? And Noordin is an advocate of the High Court. He's here. Do you exercise measures? Do you arrest them? Do you ensure that justice is done and is seen to have been done? Or how do you deal with those challenges? Because I imagine how this gentleman is probably sleeping at night. He's so scared, and probably even in the past, I think his house has been broken into. And what does that mean for his security? And if a director of public prosecutions is so scared about being in Kenya and being a Kenyan, how would Kevin Osido feel? How would a gentleman in my village in West Oyoma feel about even reporting cases of threats? I think this is a bad precedence that we are setting. The instruments and institutions of justice, therefore, in my view, need to understand or come up with mechanisms of dispute resolutions. They have to come up with mechanisms to address their issues that touch on their offices without necessarily playing to public gallery, because this brings a lot of issues of cases, yes, even touching on the deputy president, Mheshimiwa Gachagua, of course, who even during the presidential debate, before he was elected president and so on, he told us that the cases were fictitious. Now, the DPP is actually confirming the same. How do you marry those issues? We've just been talking about cases of other cabinet secretaries that the DCI, rather the DPP, termed as fictitious. How do you marry the concern of Kenyans around Chapter 6 and Article 10 of our Constitution on leadership and integrity and national values and principles, and state institutions and individuals who are therefore supposed to discharge these responsibilities? So I want to call on Mheshimiwa DPP to really think through his comments, think through the institution of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the institution as a whole, not as an individual, because you were not there some years ago, you are there now. There's going to be a day when you will leave that office. What kind of precedents are you setting? Are you setting up Kenyans to have zero confidence in institutions like as powerful as this one? Are you setting up politicians now to begin imagining that you have to be a friend of a DPP to have your cases dropped? I think it is a difficult moment for us, but it is upon him to think through the kind of legacy that he wants to set even when he leaves office. Maybe he could even resign tomorrow. You never know. I think these are very serious allegations. He's following people who have since left office, and Kenyans are looking forward to the cost of their taxes that are paying the DPP and running the DPP's office.
Kagei, lawyers are calling for the inquiry into the collapse of corruption cases. This is something that we've talked about, but I want us to talk about this proposed or suggested commission of inquiry. Even if the government sets it up, don't you think we've had this before, even during the late former President Mwai Kibaki's regime when it came in? I remember he opened up even the Nyayo torture chambers, showing the public goodwill of getting to the bottom of a lot of hot topics. Don't you think it's just going to reveal some data and then we resume to normalcy?
The problem with the inquiry is that implementation of the report is what really we suffer from. Because the report might end up touching names that you wouldn't want to touch. So that leaves the government in an awkward position. It decides, let's just let this be. Because they believe opening some Pandora's boxes will only hurt them, because once you open that one, yours will be opened somehow. You get? So the problem is never about the commissions, their work. It's always about, once the report is out, implementation. I believe in Status, for example, we have so many reports, even since Moi's time, so many reports during Kibaki's time, during Uhuru's time, and this will form part of the library. It's more or less like a library, you know. You just read and you put it there and you move on. That's a sad reality. and what we forget is that a lot of money is used in these inquiry commissions because they have to do sittings, moving around. They have to use a lot of money. But before I forget, you know, on the DPP issue, you know, for you to actually say that you are forced to charge people is actually indictment on yourself, because that in itself says that is a criminal offense. It is inexcusable. It can lead to criminal proceedings. It can even lead to you leaving office. So at the end of the day, irrespective of whatever you say, if at all you insinuate that you actually participated in cases that you knew were for political expeditions, then that in itself is an indictment. Now, if the political class are able to save themselves, and I put it in quotes, save themselves, and their cases are withdrawn. Now ask yourself, what does that commoner, or let me use the best word, that hustler that you represent, who doesn't have that proximity to power, who feels that my case is unfair to me, so who will help them withdraw their case? That is the public confidence we're talking about. So at the end of the day, it is for him to decide, not for us or anyone, or not even if there will be a commission of inquiry. It is for him to decide, do I exude public confidence as a DPP? If yes, then carry on. If no, then he knows what to do. Exactly.
Well, let's talk now about something that is different, and I want to engage Ragalo on this. It's something that is very interesting. The United Democratic Alliance has locked Kenya Kwanza partners out of Parliamentary Commission. Well, PSC, that's the Parliamentary Service Commission, is one commission that is very powerful. It prepares Parliament's annual estimates of expenditure and submits them to the National Assembly for approval. It has these budgetary powers, and it's very, very influential in as far as you know, the running of Parliament is concerned. But now UDA playing the role of the big brother, edging out these other parties. Trouble in paradise?
Not really. Why would they complain? UDA is the biggest brother. And the biggest brother really, even in your own house, bro mkubwa alikuwa nakula ugali kubwa. Hata tukigrow, as who are so much in the communal time, ulikuwa unaangalia, you remember we used to sit down, unapewa ugali kanyama kamoja na supu mingi, na unaambiwa uketi chini usikasimame. Ukisimama utaona babako amejaziwa sahani na ugali lingine kubwa, anateneza shimo akichota supu. So what I'm trying to say is, the big brother has more votes, brought in more votes. The big brother brought in more seats from diverse areas. The other brothers brought seats from one region. I'll give a very good example of Musalia's party, Amani. Amani, where did they bring any other seat other than a very one region called Vihiga? From where else did they bring a seat from? For the Kenya, just concentrated in Bungoma, not even Trans Nzoia, Bungoma. So you'll be given according to your offer, and the PSC is a very PSC is a very powerful commission. How would it go to the smaller brother? And you're the one reorganizing and organizing everywhere and everywhere. So them wakipewa commission ile ya kuangalia TV,
which is that?
Is okay. There are so many commissions there. There are commissions that you'll never hear their names. Never ever. You'll always hear names of PIC, PAC, PSC, and many other commissions are never there. Commission of Environment, rarely will you hear. But they are there, but rarely will you hear them talking so much. And when you talk about commission, I remember, sorry to bring this, you didn't ask it. I remember yesterday there was a committee sitting on health, and there was a lady with
the Senate.
Yes, the Senate committee.
Yeah.
And when I read papers, it's so awkward. The paper is written, I think is in the Nation.
Yes.
That the doctors saw this baby after 14 hours.
It's on page 10 of the Daily Nation.
Yeah, my baby waited 14 hours for a doctor. I want to see authoritatively and facing the TV that this is a bad lie.
Why?
It is not possible. It's actually witchcraft for a baby to have been seen after 14 hours. I want to put it very clear. When a baby is run, if someone is run through A&E, what is accident and emergency? The first person you meet there is a triager. The triage person will triage how fast should we move. And this triage is where we miss it out. When you triage, you decide, is this one going to make it? Is this one not going to make it? Is this one, even if we go where, we are going to go anywhere. From triaging, so these are the steps where now we should start telling the government, surely, you should take care of some of these things. This is how we miss it out. But I want to answer the doctor part first. When you first go and see a person to write you the first documents on your document, that guy is a doctor, he's an MO. After an MO makes a triage. This patient has come with accident of the head, accident of the leg, broken leg. We'll say, now I'm calling the registrar. Who? The registrar of orthopedics, the registrar of neuro, because this kid needed a registrar of neuro. Then the registrar comes in, bro. That registrar is equally a doctor.
Dr. Agallo, now that you've brought it up, you're talking about what should have happened and ideally
what should have happened
in a normal hospital setting.
What should have happened? This is a lie.
But you cannot.
This is a lie. I mean, the first thing in the gate you meet is a doctor.
Dr. Agallo, you're talking about what should happen ideally in a normal hospital setting. Now that you've brought it up, but the mother says that senators told the senators that doctor demanded she pays 20,500 before the son.
Doctors didn't demand. Now that's another name being used wrongly.
Wait a minute, Dr. Agallo. She says that she didn't have that 20,500 shillings before, to give the doctors before the son could be attended to. And that's what I'm saying, because I was not there myself. I believe you are also not there.
I just want to give a Kenyans the setup as it is, how it goes.
But you can't dispute the facts.
Doctors,
you know, I am putting myself in the image of the listener or the viewer. And the degree to which you are defending this issue, maybe you need to declare whether you were there.
Exactly.
Or
because Daktari is disputing the facts.
What I'm saying is, let's not use the word doctor wanted 20,000. It is the hospital that is paid, not the doctor. And these are things that are put there that for you to go to theater, the finance has to be paid 20,000. These are not made by doctors. So the doctor function ni ukiletewa mgonjwa wewe fanya uchinjaji. 20,000 is paid to the doctor. The doctors requested 20,000. I mean, which doctor is that who wanted 20,000 in KNH? It is paid to the cash. Uende theater. Some of these things are written in paper. Zinafanyanga madaktari wanakaa vibaya sana. And I'm defending this one. Surely. And then the other question I would ask. Wacha tu niulize hii rhetoric question. Mtoto akona jembe kwa kichwa. Kijembe. Inasemekana mtoto mwenzake aliingiza. Let's now do physics. Mtoto ndi uchukue jembe na hii ni ufuvu la kichwa, the skull. Uingize ulitumia nguvu inakaa ya mtoto mgani na ni mtoto aliingiza. So now
Dr. Agallo, we are not going to dwell on that because number one, you've disputed the facts according to the mother, and I'm just saying because
I'm even putting another question. Tuambie ukweli, ni nani aliingiza jembe kwa kichwa ya mtoto?
All right.
Because mtoto aliingiza hiyo jembe kwa kichwa ya mtoto.
Well,
Daktari, you see us, Eric, we are just here.
I'm also
look at the issues. I think just a minute, Daktari, just 1 minute. I think the core of the crust is that it's a newspaper item.
Yep.
We are not, none of us was there unless you are there, which therefore need to. Yeah, so we just allow the story to be as it is. We will have time when we live to read and understand.
And I want us to leave it at that. 30 minutes past 7 a.m. This is a morning cafe. We're talking about the state of the nation. And of course, we diverted a bit thanks to Dr. Agallo here. But we'll be back after this short break.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is the Morning Cafe. We'll talk about state of the nation. Just before we went on that short break, Dr. Agallo had brought up some alternative facts, if I can call them that, but I want us to let the matter rest. That the issue of baby Travis' mom saying that my baby waited for 14 hours for a doctor to come. Someone says that you're asking pertinent questions, but then we've all agreed in studio. None of us were there. So those are the facts as presented. But I want us to move from that. Experts are now talking about, President Ruto's plan on the economy. That is on page 1 of the Standard. It's on the front page. But they're now saying focus on graft war, then tax reforms. Economists say that sealing revenue leakages should be a priority, even as the government expands the tax brackets to get more people to pay more levies. Noordin Haji, the president has a very ambitious plan. He's talked about the mobile money service, showing the statistics, 30 million Kenyans using M-Pesa, saying if he expands that tax bracket, then his plan, what Kenya Kwanza calls the plan, is going to be successful. And I want to hear your views on that.
Well, you might expand it to those using M-Pesa and they decide not to use M-Pesa anymore. So where will you get them? You see, at the end of the day, it matters taxes, and I agree with the former Prime Minister. There has to be some level of public participation. The new constitution that we have, public participation is key in everything the government wants to do. Now, for some Kenyans, they feel that we pay a lot of taxes, and these taxes, we don't see the essence of paying them because service delivery is neither here nor there. Now, you do understand that the government is ambitious, it wants to do certain things, but the moment you don't seal the loopholes or you don't deal with corruption, you'll be collecting money to be stolen. It's like putting money in a pocket that you know has a hole. It doesn't make sense. No matter how much you put there, that money will always find itself out of your pocket. So first and foremost, we need to, I agree with those who say that we need to seal the loopholes that are there. The government also needs to reduce its appetite, because you see there are some largesses here and there that actually don't make sense, and I had to say they would work on that, because you see, I think if it's not the Deputy Speaker of National Assembly who was talking about they would want to remove some tea and mandazi from offices, plus titles. Yeah. I don't know how that will work, it's not easy, but I don't think that's the only way you can reduce expenditure, because
that's hard expenses,
because
tea and mandazi.
Because at the end of the day, I believe there are so many largesses here and there that they should work on, so that we can be able to have money that works for the people. Because if they don't do that, yes, they'll collect money. And I've heard the deputy president say that KRA should aggressively. You know, the word aggressive is relative. Eh? What do you mean by aggressive? Because now we are being told the customer is king in this administration. They're saying in the other one, the customer was suffering. So when you say aggressive, what does aggressive mean? You know, you also have to choose your words correctly so that you also don't end up eliciting emotions here and there. What I believe is that the government needs to be supported, that is for sure, for it to perform, because when it performs for us, other people.
Yeah.
And for them, the benefit they get is that their re-election, if they stand together, is going to be easier. Because you see, you'll be judged on the work you do and the promises you actually fulfill. But when you promise and then counter-promise, it's in futility. But I do believe that we need to seal the loopholes that are there. Corruption needs to be a key. It needs to be key in this government, because nothing can move when corruption is there. You talk about, for example, road networks, how expensive our road network is, the construction of our roads, for example. You talk about the plans the government wants, for example, the housing project that the government wants to do, for example. If corruption finds itself in there, it won't succeed in that project. So at the end of the day, corruption is key. The moment we fight corruption, then everything else comes out better. But if we continue promising people and corruption is still there, and we're having cases where so long as your proximity to power is there, you are allowed to do anything under the sun, then the government will be promising things that they will never be able to achieve. And 5 years later, they look for a boogeyman because now the former president is not there. So you need a new boogeyman. And we are waiting to see who the boogeyman will be. And we don't want to get to that position, because when you look at us, for example, right now, we are ravaging things like drought.
Yeah.
And we forgot even to say, we thank God today it has rained, for example, in Nairobi, you get. In some parts that is. And for me, I believe, let me just digress. I believe the fact that we are seeing there are some parts of the country that is raining, this government, since it has remnants of the former government, in the former government, when Eugene Omalo was the Minister for Water and Sanitation, he talked about reservoirs, he talked about harvesting of water. I hope this government does the same, so we don't end up looking for to cry when the drought comes back, because now the water is there, the rain is there now, and then when the water flows, it either destroys property or it kills. So we need to find a way of how we harvest that water. So the government, national and county governments should work on how they can store that water. So for me, I believe the only way this government will succeed is if corruption is dealt with, and impartial. Because the moment there's no impartiality, then that state capture committee is just going to, it's never going to deliver on what it's meant to deliver. Yeah.
Well, you've talked about something very important, the president's or the government's housing plan. Kevin Osido, the government has a very ambitious housing plan. But then again, I've seen some conversations online, Kenyans saying they are hungry. What do you think President Ruto now should prioritize?
Very, very important. One of the things that the president needs to prioritize is food security. And of course, picking up from the big 4 agenda items of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, I don't see a lot of changes or differences insofar as the priority of Kenya Kwanza government, President William Ruto, is concerned. Because a lot of the statements that he's made since he was sworn in are largely borrowing on the former government. Even the housing program, issues around this Hustler Fund and the Biashara Fund. If you listen to most of these cabinet secretaries who are now taking over offices, the handing over processes are purely based on continuity. We'll continue to do this, though we'll do it differently. So you don't see a very clear mechanism in terms of priority, even when the president himself is making statements in national functions. For example, just the other day at Mashujaa, we don't touch exactly what I would call the ideology of President William Ruto is. Because President Uhuru Kenyatta, you could tell that when he came up, he said, I want to work on Vision 2030, but narrowed down to 4 basic things: food security, manufacturing, universal healthcare, and of course, housing. So even the housing agenda that President William Ruto has is a continued process of what the former government, former President Uhuru Kenyatta had. Hence the launches that we have seen taking place, including recently at Langata and the other places, is purely based on continuity. So the priority of the government, in my view, needs to be food security, helping Kenyans put food on the table? How do we excite people to be able to get off their innovation to want to make agriculture exciting and interesting, so that we're able to expand the pool of the different food items that we have, hence diversifying our eating habits in terms of what Muranga is producing, for example, milk. How can we now navigate around Kitui and look at the mango production there? How do we add value and enhance what is happening in Kitale, what's happening with the fish industry in Kisumu and all the other parts of the country? That is the conversation that I am hoping that this government will be able to have. Number two is, of course, youth employment. So employment of Kenyans. Kenyans are jobless. People are looking for opportunities to work. People want to be able to get returns out of the work that they do. Even the pay, the daily wages, the people who are waged on a daily basis, you ask them, so unga is this amount of money, 200. I saw the other day is 178, gone down by a few shillings. Against the daily wage, how many people can you feed in a family? People are struggling with going to school, taking their kids to school. What is the agenda of government insofar as navigating around employment, so putting money in people's pockets, and access to education? These are very, very fundamental discussions. The third priority, in my view, is climate change. Of course, climate issues. Not because COP27 is happening, and not because globally people are worrisome about climate change, but just because as a people in Kenya, we have serious concerns about the fact that kids are dying in some parts of this country because they can't be able to get food. Why? Because rains have failed. Livestock farmers, cannot sell their livestock, and if they're doing it, like what I saw happening in some parts of my rural village, where a whole cow that naturally would have been about 50,000 shillings, today is going for 11,000, 5,000. What does that mean for that farmer and even the buyer, So a robust conversation around climate change and how we can also be able to just not necessarily ask people to plant 5,000 trees. In August alone, as Kevin Osido, I planted 2,022 trees. That was way before even the president said it. And I'm seeing now cabinet secretaries bragging to have planted 500 trees. School kids are planting trees every day. We need to move this conversation into having people get innovative around our responsibilities in protecting climate, and how that therefore navigates around our daily lives, and even the fact that when we plant more trees, then trees will attract rain. Of course, it's an ignominious conversation, but it's somehow true. So the government, in my view, needs to outline its priorities and therefore communicate these priorities in a manner that Kenyans easily understand it. And if you ask me, like you asked, and I've given you the basic priority areas, in my view, of course, is food security. We've talked about employment, then climate change. Tax conversations will always be there. But I think why Kenya Kwanza government is so fuzzy about this tax issue is because of the targeting that happened with the former government. So they are more or less trying to look at where are these loopholes. The former president told us we lose 2 billion shillings a day. Loopholes based on corruption. I haven't heard the president talking about dealing with corruption and how that 2 billion shillings one was arrived at, because he was a deputy president, and then measures that he's going to put in place. Number two, so tell us as a people, when we pay more taxes, what are the ripple effects? Will our roads be better? Will healthcare be better, so that discussions like the one we're having with Daktari don't have to arise or come up? Will drugs be available in our facilities? Will education be better? Let's have a deeper conversation around exciting people to want to pay taxes, not aiming at threatening them. That M-Pesa has 7 billion Kenyans. Okay, 7 billion, okay. So they can choose to go back to Airtel, as Noordin said. What will you do about it? Excite KRA to effectively communicate to people around the benefits of paying taxes. And then last but not least is another priority is minimize on government spending. And two things, Eric, in my view, that government needs to do is, one, travel is too expensive to just ferry a government officer from Nairobi to Kisumu or to Siaya, where I come from. Okay, talk about Naivasha. Now it's a city. through Nakuru. Then talk about Mombasa. Why must we have heavy per diems? Then now COP27 is happening and we're having more than 200 plus people going to COP27. The degree of spending of government. And then training. Why must we over-excite government training opportunities that it has to be so expensive? I think there is a way in which, and I'm hoping that now the Cabinet Secretary Mheshimiwa Aisha Jumwa through public service will be able to have a robust conversation in terms of how we can be able to make it easy to save for government while also optimizing capacity for government officials. Because again, the challenge is we fail to train them, they won't have capacity, skills will not be there. But we are not saying that the training has to be expensive. Just put up some austerity measures in terms of who must go for that training, not the PA, you the what again, so that one individual is going to be trained has 14 people waiting for him or her by the door during break. One to carry the phone, another one wants to carry a cup of tea, another one is carrying a pen. I think it's too expensive for government. So if we can have conversations that prioritize on service delivery while also looking at benefits that accrue to the people of Kenya.
Well, thank you for that. Now, Dr. Ragalo, Osido has raised something very important. It is on page 18 of the Standard. The COP27, a chance to save millions from climate-fueled hunger. Africa is one of the continents that are severely affected by climate change. When the developing countries breathe out, we take in the greenhouse gases. What do you think our leaders should prioritize when they go to Egypt that is on Sunday, from Sunday?
Thank you. My brother, they don't need to go to Egypt. They actually don't need to go to know how to manage climate change. A very good example. When you till land, you don't need to be told that next time, don't put maize that you had put last year. Put beans. So that beans will now reach the soil. Then the coming year, put maize. You don't need to go to Egypt to be told, surely, you don't need to cut trees. Rather, you need to put more trees. You don't need to go to Egypt to be told, hey, Kenya, you have an area called Garissa that is arid, that can bring in a lot of solar electricity. You don't need to be told that some places are very windy, that you only need to have turbines that moves with the wind, and then you fetch electricity. I mean, do you really need all that? That question, really, we did Kyoto Protocol and many other. Do we need to do the same things all the time? So what we need is action. And the same way my brother said is very easy. I mean, the government here can borrow from what our side said. I could tell this government we still are thirsty of free primary to university education. We still are thirsty for free health care. We still are thirsty of the many goodies that even your own competitor you keep talking about negatively promised. So how can you make it better? Very easy. Na hii ni kuibiana exam. Angalia kitabu ya mwenzako na akili ya kutengeneza. Usiangalia tia wengine waliandika nini ni watoe makosa. Hapana. Iba exam ya mwenzako alisema free primary. We can do it. How? There was 2 billion getting lost. Close the gap. Hii mambo ya chai na mandazi kwa ofisi wachana nayo. Reason is it is a snack. Every office has a snack. Every office gets a visitor who you give a snack as he waits at the reception. Hii mambo ni Africa. Let me now put it. In an African society, if I come to your home, as I'm waiting, ama nimeambiwa mzee ako bedroom anakuja, what does the woman does? Anakupea chai. So unataka kuniambia mama nani hapa nitakata chai ya wageni. Which African have you become? It's an African to cut a snack. Chai too. Na mandazi, surely.
It's austerity measures.
No, it's not. It's not going to change anything. Chai na mandazi ni so moja. I mean, bro. Na huku tunapoteza bilioni 2 per day. So why don't we do this? 2 billion per day times 364. Wacha 65. 65 inakuja mara moja kwa miaka mingi. hiyo inakuletea bilioni karibu 7, not bilioni, trilioni kitu, sema trilioni 1 na kitu. So hii trilioni tunapoteza, tunaweza ifunika, na kaa tunaweza ifunika, tunaweza eka hii pesa wapi? So we decide, out of this money, in this 1 trillion we lose, let's give free education and manage healthcare. And when we do this, in these funds, you'll have what your competitor did. They wanted free education. You guys have offered it. Ni kuiba positive exams. You've offered it. So this is what I'm looking at. Then what I'm also looking at is we stop talking about state capture. There's nothing called state capture. Everyone is a businessman. You are not prevented from doing business with the government. There are people doing business with the county government. Have they captured county government? Now he's an employee of Ruiru sub-county, for example. He's selling sukuma wiki to Kiambu Hospital every day. Now he's doing a business on the side. Is that wrong?
I think what we're trying to discourage is conflict of interest, really.
Bro, and I'll be honest with you, we should find a way and put a policy on how to work with the government. We're an state officer. But when you tell a policeman not to have a matatu on the road, you are telling him not to do business. Tell him, hey boss, you can have a matatu on the road. You are a police officer, actually a traffic police. Hii matatu napita ruti yako, but wewe, hii ruti yako hii matatu itawaipita. Wacha iende ruti ya Kisumu. Find a way he can also do business. You know, you don't cut Kenyans from doing business with the government. That is not state capture. Because state capture, basically, people thought, ni kwenda kufanya state isifanye kazi. The mindset of the people, how the campaign was done. State capture is right. Do positive work with the government. The only problem is oligarchy. They didn't tell you about oligarchy. A group of people who decides even who do what, who do what. That was wrong. But state capture, surely everyone does a business with the government. Even the same people talking about state capture, wao ndio wanapeleka hata miguu za gari zenye zinatumika za gari ya serikali, wao ndio wana supply bitumen, na wao ndio wanaongea juu ya state capture. Let's stop state capture, start working. But the issue is, the government should not be traveling too much, do very normal things. We had our brother in Tanzania. He flew out of the country thrice in 3 years before he died. Which country did he go? He didn't go to Europe. He came to Kenya. He went to Uganda. Which other country?
South Africa.
South Africa. He went to 3 countries. And what did he do in those years? Things change in his country. So do we really need to go to be told how to put a good forest in Mau? These things we know. Just implement. Chukua commission ya Wangari Maathai in a positive way. I want to see how we can handle what we call green economy. Hiyo tunasema green economy. What is green economy? Is make sure everything we are doing, we are not destroying the environment. So there is no point I've not had in our country, and this is very serious. There is no day we talked about the soil. We keep talking about the forest, wild animal. We don't talk about the soil. Bro, when you remove humus from the soil, you get sand. When you add humus in the soil, you get sand, sorry, you get soil. We don't take care of our soil. So how do we take care of our soil? Natural infrastructure.
Yeah.
And when you ask about the soil, the answer of soil will give you all things you need to harness what you say green economy. And now in coming to green economy, if we want to be serious, then you have to be not friendly to the West. Lazima ukatae vitu zingine wanataka. Wao ndio wanakuja kulima gold. Wakishalima gold wanaacha mahandaki makubwa. What do you call these deep things? You need to cover up. Eric, do I need gold? We may not need gold us because we really don't even wear them as much. The same gold, you cannot even afford it. The cheapest gold and original cheapest gold surely goes for around 10,000 and above. Do you need gold? No. So wale ndio wanakuja wanachukua all the raw materials here in the name of they are taking soil then inakuja tunauziwa vitu expensive. So for us to do some of these things, we need to say no to the West. Saying no to the West again is going to be a problem to us.
So how do we ensure, because that was the question, how do we ensure that it's a win-win situation? We go there with our own agenda, ensure that the West listens to us, because the developed countries actually are really mostly to blame for the situation that we are in.
We need Muammar Gaddafi in Africa. We need Che Guevara. We need the president of Bolivia who left, was called who? I've forgotten the name. We need such people who can talk authoritatively. We need Mugabe. Any country that goes against the West, they call you dictator. Even when you're saying the right thing and the true thing, you branded a dictator. Let me ask this question. Was Muammar Gaddafi a dictator? A dictator was giving free healthcare. A dictator was giving free education. A dictator was offering people to learn abroad and come back and work for free. Is that how a dictator is defined? If that is a dictator, then I fear Raila presidency that was going to give me free healthcare, was going to give me free education, was going to make sure some guy from university have 7 years free from paying HELB loan, then Raila was going to be a very bad dictator. If that is what a dictator is. So Africa, we are not supposed to do things ourselves. If you don't pick a loan from abroad, you become a dictator. So any country does well, like Fidel Castro's country. He became a dictator. A dictator was able to even manage and treat cancer today. Made that small island country free. He was a dictator. Evo Morales, Bolivia president, became a dictator. Was Saddam Hussein a dictator? Sometimes we need to sit down and think, why do we call others dictator? When they do things that is right for their country and stand with their country's policy and way of life. You become a dictator, they bring some other people, make some ragtag things in your country, unajikuta tu unang'olewa. So you become a dictator. That is what Africa needs. Africa don't need to go there and become students. One last word. Do Africa need to be taken all of them to Egypt? Na kutanga ma African president wote wameenda China. Wanaenda wanaekwa kwa class. I'm calling it class. Wanafunzwa, wanapewa bilioni. I mean bilioni means loans. Warudi. Do you need that? No.
I can see Noordin is itching to respond, but I want us to take a very, very short break. We're talking about the coming COP27. Of course, that climate change meeting is expected to kick off on Sunday, this coming Sunday, in Egypt. And of course, African leaders are going, and I'm sure they're going to present their agenda. Noordin, I'll let you respond to that. I can see you are itching to respond to what Dr. Aragalo is saying, but let's now take a very, very short break. Don't go away, we'll be back. This is Morning Cafe. You can text us on 22047. Tell us what you think. Join in the conversation. Tell us what you think about the wide-ranging topics that we are touching on. We'll be back right here shortly. Don't go away.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na...
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday. Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie.
The party begins. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political...
Sankara used to say, he who feeds you controls you. They feed you, so they have to control you. And there's something he talked about, which the word of today I think is borrowing. We need to let us borrow a leaf. How can the African leaders prosper? The easiest way to do it is they can borrow a leaf from what Sankara did before he was assassinated. You see, you see what you need in Africa. This is what Malema says, that the AU is a club of old men who only take care of their needs. They never care about their citizens or those who live in Africa. Now the problems of Africa don't need trips to Europe, because that is where even the problem is. So why do you want to solve issues of unemployment in Africa for you to fly out and discuss? You're out there discussing your problem. That is why I also had an issue with our two front runners flying all the way to where they flew to discuss what they would do as presidents. You get me? But they did that because the same people control your economy, your politics. They control basically everything, which means the independence you have is basically on paper. But you see, without economic freedom, there is no freedom. Without political freedom, there is no freedom at the end of the day. And that is why you see even the former Prime Minister say that he feels that the West were against him because of what he stood for. For example, the one county, one product. That meant industrialization. That meant the growth of our economy. That meant less of import, more of export. So to him, he feels they felt threatened. Is that true? A story for another day. We need to discuss that. So you get what we are trying to say is that the problems of Africa should be solved by African leaders. For you to solve a problem that is in Africa, you must first be patriotic. You must be selfless. You cannot say that you are a leader, but you care more about, or rather your stomach is your only age mate. So for you, so long as you eat and so long as you can make deals with the West, your people can wait. And that is the problem, the travesty that we have. And that is why the poverty that is in Africa is sickening. And it's not that Africa in itself cannot feed itself. It can feed itself. But you're going to be taught how to feed yourself, and you own the land. Or rather, the land is in your country, but basically you don't own it completely. So at the end of the day, I believe that leaders need to rise to the occasion and understand that for Africa to prosper, one, we keep talking about one Africa, one currency, one army, one people, one president. It can't be a reality where there's selfishness. It can't be a reality where there's no common agenda. That is why I say there's no common agenda. These trips that people make, it's either cutting deals here and there, asking, what do I get, a 10% here, a 10% there. So when you come to the table, the one who controls the currency is already a step ahead. So you're playing catch up, and you'll never catch up. So that is why I'm saying the AU needs to be strong. And it has to have a common agenda. That is, how does Africa and Africans benefit from any trade deal that we get into? Right now, Kenya is talking about trade deals with the US. The US, as it is doing public participation with its people, all right, to come up with recommendations. Have we done that as a country? Because our CS for trade will have to go for the negotiations. What do we stand to gain as a people? What are our recommendations? Because if we are going without the recommendations, we will accept whatever is thrown at us. And that is the problem. And then we come back home and we start crying, you know what, these people are taking advantage of us. He who fails to plan, plans to fail. And that is the problem. So in living with the spirit of borrowing, for example, the same government can actually even borrow something from the Azimio manifesto, the livestock insurance. Livestock is the current currency of drought now. Why can't they borrow that? You see, the problem is that whatever idea that is good, so long as it's not your idea, you feel that you will not implement it. And that is the problem. And that is why I've given an example of what African leaders should do. So whatever Sakana did in his country, look at how can I implement that in my country. Yes, some of you will not live to see the success of that story. But at the end of the day, if we really want Africa to prosper, it needs a radical change, a shift from what is there. The despots that are there, that are custodians of the West, because we have leaders in Africa who are custodians of the West. The custodians of the West need to pave way so that we move. But if we don't, we'll sit here on TV every single time lamenting on how Africa is being used, exploited, resources have been taken out, and then being returned to you at an expensive rate at the end of the day. And we will never move. And the A will remain a club for the old with no vision, other than retirement benefits.
Osido, as you respond, I also want us to go back to politics a bit. There's a very interesting story on page 21 of the Standard, and it's about the counties. The spouses have no roles in county leadership. Governors have been cautioned. You're from the County Governance Watch. As you respond to the issues of climate change, I also want us to touch on that because there's a very, very interesting view by the former Transition Authority chairperson, that is Kinoti, saying that it is wrong to call spouses first ladies or gentlemen because it's an intrusion, that's what he calls it, and an imposition of functions that do not exist in law. Of course, the story that, or rather the recent story that is causing ripples in the country is the Meru County government, the way it's being run, the first gentleman and the governor, they are standing firm on their ground, saying that they're not going to be intimidated by MCAs. They've made some some claims about what the MCAs want, but you want to respond about
that's a very, very important issue. I'll come to it, but let me also throw in some comments about the COP27 conversations. I think it is important that Africa and African leaders participate in the conversations. Because remember that COP is basically Conference of Parties and is convened by the UN through the framework of Climate Change Convention that has 197 signatories, of which most of African countries are part of that convention. So it's therefore a platform where conversations, very high level conversations happen that border on what commitments countries have put in place, and there are 26 of them, including last year's Glasgow in Scotland. And so luckily enough, Africa is hosting the 27th one in Egypt from 6th to 18th of November, and which to me borders on what is the space of Africans and African countries. We are the worst hit. Look at the ravaging fires in Nigeria a few weeks ago. Look at livestock dying in Kenya today. We have almost 4.3 million people, going through starvation. These are not stories that any president wants to be listening to, being told around you, your country, and how you are performing. And so COP27 and all these COPs therefore provide opportunities for us to think deeper around actions that can be taken insofar as climate change and climate conversations are concerned. And I think for me, one of the things that really needs to happen is to put policy into practice. In the former, in the very last devolution conference in Makueni, we had commitments, and the theme of that conference was purely multi-level, and we had very good conversations with you, Eric, in McQueen, under the tent. Very deep conversations around commitments by governments, particularly county governments. And there were issues about climate change acts. Can those things be made feasible to the common man? Can we break it down, communicate it properly so that people understand what is a county climate change act? How does it relate to the national government climate change conversations and now to COP27? That is a discussion that has not taken place. So that this hula baloo about planting trees is made real. People understand why the president is talking about 5 million or whatever number of trees, and why people like Dr. Alfred Mutua is really excited about bragging of having planted trees. There's nothing in it, but break it down so that people understand what it is. Climate change finance, there is a whole directorate under the Minister of Environment that is supposed to be taking charge around issues of climate change finance. What does that mean to the common farmer in Mwea? And if you have gone through Embu, just Thika Road, Embu all the way, you see a whole stream of dry land, which many years ago used to be the Mwea Tebere rice irrigation scheme. What happened? So the role of county government of Embu in terms of salvaging all this and helping the farmers now get money through rice keeping. Go to Ahero in Kisumu, all the way from Muhoroni as you get into Kisumu city, is a whole farm which used to be the Ahero irrigation scheme. It is dead. How can Kisumu County government now get into opportunities with the farmers through all these climate change conversations? Go to, as you head towards Malindi, there is a place called Gongoni, the Crystal Salt Lake farm. It's what is that? Where it's, you know, look at the heat, the suffering that people around there have to go through. Is it possible that local conversations can take place even as we talk about COP27 at that very high level, to now localize it so that people feel, and the companies that are in charge of this kind of aspects feel the ramifications of their actions, and how they can be able to break it down to common local communities to be part and parcel of actions that need to be taken to bring down the effects of climate change. So I think for me, Eric, the conversations in Egypt are important. Our president will be going there, similar to all the other world leaders. But I think the communication about a deeper understanding of the effects of climate change and why these discussions are very, very important is missing. So that we break it down to Ministry of Agriculture. What are the commitments within the ministry? Ministry of Energy, when you talk about last mile of electricity, where is the conversation around solar? You know, I have a home back in the village and I wanted to install electric power. Kenya Power gave me a quote of 315,000 Kenya shillings to just put one pole. I was asking myself, wow, what if I thought about solar energy and solar panels? So, you know, the alternatives, discussions around alternatives that people have against government commitments of leaving no one behind in terms of connectivity, electric connectivity. Those are important conversations that if we can be able to consider climate change conversations, climate justice, and human actions, and what that means, I think these high-level discussions will make a lot of sense to Kenyans. Now, to the issue of the spouses, it is your wife who was elected as governor, not you. Hey, you MCA, it is your husband who was elected MCA, not you. Okay, you, Madam President, it is your husband who was elected, not you. So this will about first ladies, first gentlemen. I think it is borrowed from developed countries that have institutionalized governance and leadership. So that in the US, you have a vice president who is a lady, and the husband is called the second gentleman. Yeah? That is their way of looking at it. And they have made it possible that there is even an office of the second gentleman with clear responsibilities. Here in Kenya, I think we borrow things without looking at what they mean. If your husband wants to be a county government officer, there is an institution called the County Public Service Board. And that is why I agree with my teacher, Bwana Kinoti Mwangi, the former chair of the TA, who actually says that it is not anywhere in law. If you want to be acknowledged by your wife, please wait for an advert. Then you can apply like any other Kenyan.
But in the case of Meru, the governor was very clear that the first gentleman as the patron, as a youth patron, was just doing it voluntarily. He's not earning from the county government. Why all this hullabaloo?
That is okay, but don't tell us.
Don't tell us.
Don't raise, don't want to bring heaven so that we know that your husband is a volunteer. My friend, we have thousands of people volunteering every single day, including today. There are people volunteering to make their communities better. Don't tell us that your husband is volunteering. Just let us not know. Whatever you do in your family, because there are so many people volunteering. I've even seen at the national level where the first lady and the second lady have gone now. They want to do distribution of food. It should be based on their own personal volition. Tenda wema, chukua mzigo yako, nenda zako. Don't tell us, because I won't tell you as Kevin how much money I've sent to people in Turkana and other places to buy food. Government is not paying me, and government is not paying all the other people. So don't make it newsworthy, because let it not be a news item, because in fact it is not even newsworthy. Rest it at that level. If you want your husband to be the patron, ask the youth there, who are, some of them I know in Meru are organized in very strong youth networks, like National Youth Council, Meru Youth Alliance, Meru Youth Bunge Association. All these institutions are there. Convene them as a governor and ask them, by the way, one of my agenda items is to give opportunities for the youth and empower them.
Yeah.
Can you help me get one of you as a patron? If they pick your husband, well and good, because it means that political goodwill is now closer to the door, if not by the bedroom. The nice things you discuss to do for the youth of Meru will meet the attention of the governor firsthand. But don't make it look like, now I am the governor, Madam Wangaza, and my husband has to be the patron. No. I think that is making it difficult for people to feel represented in government decision making. Some people will feel left out because it more or less engages as a family affair, and we are setting the wrong precedents even for other areas. You are not the only one whose husband wants to be seen to be working. We have 7 elected female governors. If each of them decided to do similar things, it means that we'll be making it difficult even for services to be delivered at the county level, because there are institutions that have been given that mandate by the Constitution that therefore must be seen to be delivering those services. And as I said, if any of these family members have also seen the daughter of the Deputy President running around county governments trying to be seen to be doing something, for what? Are you doing it because you are a good loving citizen, you are patriotic to the aspects of governance and devolution? Then work with the office of the Deputy President, where now a lot of devolution work has been put in place, because we don't have a Minister of Devolution, as a precedence. Yet devolution forms a very strong chapter in our Constitution. So let's do away with these family interests. Let's allow Kenyans to feel like government is for everyone. Let's be magnanimous about what we are doing. And unless we need to know about it, I like taking photos, Eric, and every time I post and people tell me, wewe unapenda picha sana. But who has stopped you from taking photos using your phone? So people also have different ways. Maybe Mheshimiwa felt like, let me tell the people of Meru about my husband's interest in this government. But I think we should also allow institutions of governance, to do their work. So that if it is a county public service board, let your husband apply. And if you have interests, declare them at the level of recruitment. Tell them, this is my husband. Please look at him with very good eyes. And I hope that once he gets into this office, we will make this place a better place. But trying to make things difficult, which are also not constitutional, I think it is not in the right space. It takes away the reason as to why Kenyans actually wanted devolution and county governments to be closer to them, to deliver services to them. Sure. And in finishing, Eric, it should not be a war. Just telling MCAs that this is my husband, okay, I made a mistake of appointing him or doing these things the way I've done them, I'm sorry, forgive me. It should not be dramatic to be seen to be people even walking out on you during your very important day of opening the assembly. I thought that was a start on the wrong footing. Maybe COG. We have tried to engage with the Meru governor in terms of officially, and we are hoping that somehow we can also get the elders from Meru to rein in and help, because otherwise she stands to be probably the first governor to be impeached if.
But why will they do that? And I want to ask Ragalo that why would MCAs want to impeach a governor who's just standing her ground, saying that she's not ruling with an iron fist, but she's just following the law in performing her duties? Why all these hullabaloo?
Integrity issues. Usually, integrity issues bring a lot of questions. And integrity issues come about a feeling of madharau to the people who you are supposed to work with. So now your husband has a seat. He didn't go through the due process to get that seat. So, and at what level are we going to work with him? Because everything works with the MCAs. If you go to those community organizations that my brother is talking about, they're in the MCA ward levels. And MCA is part and parcel of those community organizations. So this MC already knows who Jama vile aliingia is not okay. So how are they going to work? That's actually what my brother is saying, integrity levels, na ethic levels. 2, we saw a lot of now stories in Meru County. To an extent now you could see around 7 to 8 members of the family got employed at the same time. Mwingine ni bodyguard, mwingine ni nani. You see, some of these things should not come to us. But the bodyguard decided everything have to come out.
The bodyguard is employed by the National Police Service.
I know. What we are trying to say, because of the ethic issues and integrity issues, it's not that the bodyguard being a sister or a brother to the governor is wrong. But now they are trying to show you see how the family has been brought in. It will not be wrong, but in the eyes of integrity, that I'm telling you, integrity and ethics, it is not wrong. But again, it's not right. But it is not against the law. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So because of that interference, the integrity part, they will feel like, no, the government is bringing the whole family. So this place is going to be extended family managing the whole county. So that thing will go to the electorate. And this electorate is the Mwananchi who is supporting now the county, and the county should support Mwananchi. How will they engage with the official from the governor's office, who now they feel, ni kazi na mekuja, ni anko ya governor kutoka kwa mama, ni anko ya governor kutoka kwa baba. Are you getting? It's not against the law, but what I'm trying to get what my brother is saying, but the picture that it depicts. And that's how you ask yourself, why are we not hearing the same story from Kirinyaga County? Why are you not hearing? You mean Wanga, it's not her name, it's her husband's name. You know? Why are we not seeing Wanga there? And Wanga getting seats and making noise? I'll give you an example. Why didn't we see in Bomet County, we didn't see the Laboso husband there? Okay? Many people even came to know Laboso husband during the Requiem Mass, when the guy gave a very good eulogy to the wife. You understand? So that is when people saw, kumbe ni mzee wa Laboso. So such things is what we are supposed to say. But in the presidency becomes another issue. Because more than our time, people want to see the wife of the president. Actually, we are forced to see by the papers, by the newsrooms, and then the wife of the incoming president. There is, the first lady, the guy who's going to occupy. We tend to do things like the white. So when the first president, the president gets into the office, we always see the first wife gets the job of community job, want to work with people basically in the community. Yeah. Of course. But usually it's not a payroll job. And that's why that seat is different to the other seats. And if we'll ever have a first gentleman, we'll do the same thing. But these other seats, surely, MCS tulete bibi yake aseme this is the first ward rep. It is not going to augur well. So issue here, it's not against the law, but it is logic. To even the husband go on TV and say, I'm not even allowed to go and sleep. I mean, what are you saying, my friend? What are you saying?
Noordin, as we wrap this up, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, you see, two things. Number one, on Meru. You see, in Nairobi we have a saying, mapema ni best. Now, for the governor of Meru to understand what mapema ni best is, it means impeachment atajua itakuja mapema, because at the end of the day, you see, my brother, you asked about impeachment. All the only thing the MCAs need to look at is Article 181 of the Constitution. One of the things there is gross misconduct and abuse of office. Now, if that shows itself anywhere around the governor, then her goose is cooked. You see, the problem is most governors haven't understood devolution. For them, an MCA is like a councillor. They have not understood that you need that MCA to pass a budget. You need that MCA to vet those CECs that you want to come up with. Now, if this is the relationship you have with your MCAs and you are yet to take a supplementary budget, you are yet to take your CEC nominees, how will you work? They will frustrate you. You will not perform. The people are, as they say, the ground will become hostile for you. You will be impeached, or they will find avenues for your impeachment. And you know, MCAs can just cook themselves in this room tonight and say, we sleep here, tomorrow morning you're going home. And you find yourself going home, and they'll find reasons. Because the way she's moving, there might be reasons. The best thing to do for the husband is to just step behind or step back. Let your wife shine. It's her moment. Let her be the governor. Advise her. You don't need to be seen. Clearly, your presence is what is aiking most MCAs who feel maybe you feel that you can coordinate them. You feel like you can plan things. Just step back, like what he said. We have female governors. Some of them, we don't even know their husbands. I've never even been seen. You can even pass him in town without knowing that is a husband. So what you need to do, let your wife shine. Let her work as the governor, because she sought the mandate. All right? And number two, because we were talking about borrowing. There's something on the daily paper, on the daily. From yesterday, the deputy president was with those from KEPSA. They were talking about a drive to create jobs. And I saw there the new CS for youth and sports. You see, and I heard them say that the private sector should try and provide 5 jobs to become close to the president or become a buddy of the president for the youth. You know, let me tell you something. You see, the problem is that we copy-paste a lot. We had a youth fund, it became Hustler Fund. Now here it will become Biashara Fund. We had Kazi Mtani, it became Kazi Mjengo, and it became Kazi Mstuni. But you see, this thing is not rocket science. Let me tell you, if you really want to help the youth matters and employment, you see, the CS for sports is the right person. And if he's watching, the easiest way to work around this is one. Do you know the sports docket is a global economy that employs so many people, for example. When Germany lost the World Cup in 2002, the then Minister for Sports decided to open up 300 football academies across Germany. And that is why you're seeing of the likes of Müller, of Ozil, and the likes. And that is how that opened up employment. You have so many young men and women who play rugby, who play cricket, who play football, and any other sport, and even athletics who run. But the goodwill from the government to be able to make this sporting venture lucrative is the problem. What we need to do is commercialize our sporting activities. And the travesty is that during COVID, most of the football players who were playing for these teams, Gor Mahia, FC Leopards, when there was COVID and there was no football, some of them turned into hawkers. What does that tell you as a country? We are doing something wrong. So at the end of the day, he says he's new, he's fresh, he's young. He look into the legislation that is hindering commercialization and it all. We are waiting to see. Because you know, the moment you have a docket that talks about youth, sports and culture, a lot is on your table. So we really hope and pray that he will diversify his way of doing things and think beyond the box, because those who have been there clearly didn't understand what that docket can do. It can employ so many young people without having, you know, the youth don't need a desk job. How many desk jobs will you produce? And when you talk about youth and employment, the only thing the government is looking at is farming. Some are not into farming. How will you force someone who doesn't like to farm into farming? You get. So there are so many ways you look at their art, their skills, and maximize on that. And believe you me, the moment you commercialize our sporting activities, that is revenue to the country as well. And we move forward.
Well, thank you very much, Noordin Kegai, an advocate of the High Court. Noordin, they are reacting to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's drive to launch 1 million jobs. Yesterday, we were having this conversation about state of the nation in studio. I have with me Kevin Osido from the County Governance Watch, Noordin Kegai, of course, an advocate of the High Court, as well as Dr. Eric Regalo, who's a governance expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for gracing this show. Asante sana. I want us now to take a very, very short break. We'll be back